Here, the Cashflow Chick. And I think I'm coming to you live on Facebook, and I'm really excited. I hope that you're having a tremendous week. But today I am talking with Jillian Sidoti, and Jillian and I have known each other for a long time, several years now. And, you know, whenever you're in an endeavor in real estate or real estate investing, no matter what your niche or your medium is, as everybody knows that I'm involved in non-performing notes. But whether you're involved in just fixing and flipping, or if you're doing syndications for apartment deals, whatever it is, your team members are super important. And that one of your key team players is your attorney. Now, over the course of my 20 years of real estate investing, I have had lots of attorneys, none of whom have been as vibrant and amazing and fun as Jillian Sidoti. So Jillian is with Trowbridge Sidoti. She's a managing partner there. She also can be reached through crowdfundinglawyers.net. She and her firm do PPMs, and I'm going to have her explain a little bit what these are. But she does syndications, PPMs, LLC operating agreements. She does everything. Crowdfunding.
Do it all.
She does it all.
Every other type of law.
Exactly. And she and her firm are the leading experts in crowdfunding. So Jillian, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk to you.
Yeah. So I'm really excited because you're going to be joining us at the Building Wealth with Notes workshop coming up in May. So live and in person. And that's been a long time coming. Between our schedules, it's been difficult. But Jillian, tell me a little bit about you and Trowbridge Sidoti and what you were doing a little bit before you came into being a lawyer, or back into being a lawyer, I should say.
Yeah, you know, like you said, what we do here at Trowbridge Sidoti is we do all the stuff that has to do with you finding private equity for your deal. So we don't do the bank financing. We work with the bank financing in terms of finding, you know, not finding the equity partners for you, but making sure that you're legally compliant so that you can have equity partners in your deal. So we don't do purchase and sale agreements. We don't do, you know, title or anything like that, but we do probably what is one of the keystone parts to buying and selling real estate, which is helping you legally get money through the door. So with that being said, you know, I was in the position of a lot of your viewers, which was that I was in real estate development and I needed money. And so I went off and started trying to raise private money, and I was doing it all wrong. So I learned that you need to have, you know, these documents, and you need to follow the law in order to go out and get money from investors. So I did just that. And then once the last downturn hit, I stopped working in real estate and investing in real estate and switched to practicing law and helping people who are where I used to be, which is on the other side of the transaction.
Absolutely. And you, I know for a fact, because I know plenty of your clients as well, that you've saved their and covered their tushes, you know, their backsides.
Yeah. I will tell you right now, there's two. I mean, the FBI is a pretty scary organization. If they come knocking on your door, that's pretty scary.
Yes, I imagine.
The other two organizations in this country, governmental agencies that are in this country that are so frightening, are the IRS and the SEC. And you don't want to cross any one of those organizations. And I'll tell you, they talk to each other. They communicate with each other. How do you think people like Paul Manafort get into trouble? And it's because, you know, the IRS talks to the FBI and the SEC and so on and so forth. So if you're doing something wrong in securities laws and you get caught, it's not just about breaking securities laws. It's about exposing your entire life to, governmental agencies that can essentially, put you in prison. So it's not really about, taking money in the wrong way. It's and being, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to. It's more like, okay, now what else did you expose yourself to because you violated this one law over here, even though it was unintentional, even though you didn't mean it, even though you had all, good intentions and you just didn't know any better. It doesn't matter. You don't want to open that door to an IRS audit because the SEC decided to look at your, your securities offering. And so they subpoenaed your bank accounts, and then they found irregularities with the IRS. So they turned it over to the IRS, and then they started a whole thing. So this is why this is so important. This is why I get so excited about, people who are not exactly following the law in this area. And it has nothing to do with enriching myself or my firm and getting your money in. It has to do with, I see what can happen when you don't take the law into the utmost consideration.
And, that's such a great point. And, Jillian was just talking about the different agencies that can come down on you, and you don't have to be a big fish, right, for the agencies to come down on you, right, Jillian? Yeah. I mean, they go after the little guy too.
The little guy is low hanging fruit.
Right.
That's the easiest person to go after. And I'll even say this, SEC, IRS, FBI aside, there are other organizations such as state securities boards that are even more interested in you. So, and I can show you cease and desist after cease and desist after cease and desist of small time investors, small time money raisers that were trapped by these state organizations because they didn't follow the rules. So that's, you just don't want to have to do with that. And I have one example of a guy up in Washington State who took money from 3 people, his brother-in-law, his one other relative, I can't remember, it was a cousin maybe, and his neighbor. And he took money from these 3 people, and the state, he didn't do anything wrong. What happened was the state regulators used to, on a regular basis, go through the notes that were recorded in the county assessor's office and see, are there individual names that are on fractionalized notes here, non-institutionalized names. So it's not Bank of America on the note, it's Joe Schmo on the note, along with Harry Smith and whomever else. Right. And found this note with these 3 names on it, called my client up or sent him a subpoena saying, what's going on here? Why are there 3 names on this note? We don't have any securities filings for you. And he said, oh, well, I took money from them for an investment opportunity, and they slapped him with a $10,000 fine. Yep. Now, I want you to think about that. $10,000, maybe that's not, a ton of money in some of your minds, but it is a lot of money. It's the cost of a good used car. A, B, number one. And I said A and number one. Anyhow, let's just go with that. So
We're rolling with it, Jillian.
Yeah. So, number one, that depending on how you look at it, that's a lot of money. And it's also that's a very specific amount of money. Think about how much it would cost you to retain a lawyer to fight that.
Right.
And then there's no guarantee that the lawyer's going to win for you. Right. So $5,000, $7,500, $10,000 fines are very typical because the state agencies know you're just going to pay the fine instead of fighting it, because it's going to cost you more to hire an attorney to exonerate yourself. And exoneration is not the best word because we're talking about civil enforcement here, not criminal enforcement, but you get my point. The point is made.
Exactly. So the good news is that you now, through me, know Jillian, and you can contact her to save yourself from going down that path. Are you violating any SEC regulations? Oftentimes at the Building Wealth with Notes workshop, we talk about don't pool funds. Don't do it, because that's technically selling a security. And so Jillian will be able to help guide you, with what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate, so that you don't incur these fines. Believe me, and she will tell you, I love the fact that she does. So Jillian, tell us about not just, you were talking a little bit about because sometimes when we start out, we're smaller. But then we grow as we become an investor. So you can handle everything, you and the firm can handle everything from just setting up as simple as setting up an LLC and having operating agreements with its members, all the way up to PPMs and crowdfunding. So give us a little bit, some thumbnails about what you're going to be talking about at the Building Wealth with Notes workshop and what those different things mean.
So we're going to cover a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time. Yep. I'm not going to just cover, here are the legal documents you need. It's important that you know what the legal documents are. And it's very important that you know what's in those legal documents, because those are your documents that you're presenting to an investor. So we're going to definitely talk about that. We're going to talk about why. We're going to talk about what the law is and how to break it down, in a very simple manner when you're evaluating your own deals and what you need. But another thing I'm going to teach you how to do is not only how to legally raise capital, but how to effectively raise capital, because it does no good for me to tell you all the laws and bore you to death with legal mumbo jumbo if you have no idea after we're all done on how to and get that money, right? So we're gonna try to cover as much ground as we can in a very short period of time and just overwhelm you with information to the point where you're like, I get it, just enough to be dangerous.
And that's all we need, as we all have talked about before, money and deals, deals and money. And so a lot of the value that that Jillian brings is not only cover your butt, but how to effectively raise capital. And that's always kind of people think it's a mountain when it can really be a molehill in terms of being able to raise capital, be effective, and also be in legal compliance.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what a PPM is, Jillian, versus perhaps Reg A, or why don't we do that? Why don't we go?
Yeah. So PPM. Yes. A PPM is just like a small, well, it's not small. A PPM is for private investors. So you're not necessarily registering it or qualifying it with the SEC. When you get to a Reg A, you're qualifying it with the SEC. You're asking them essentially permission to go out and sell securities. And why this is important is that if you want to take in unaccredited investors, smaller investors who perhaps don't have as much experience as some of the real estate entrepreneurs we know out there, and you still want to take their money, then you would go off and you would do a Reg A. So that's like really a step above. It's referred to in the industry as a mini IPO, and it's very similar to going public. So that would be your next step beyond the PPM. The PPM, though, is this document. It's your business plan on. This is the first thing that came to me, and I've never used this term before. It's your business heroin. Like, it's really depressing, it's really awful. It's a terrible story about all the risks of bad things that could happen. But it's fully disclosing to your investors, hey, this is what it means to invest. So that's what you want to provide to your investors so that they're fully informed when they're making an investment decision and deciding to invest in your deal.
Absolutely. It really just gives all of the disclosures and the potential pitfalls of taking on that kind of investment with your hard-earned dollars.
Right.
It really, and they're pretty lofty, aren't they? I mean, they're pretty lengthy, don't you think, Jillian?
Oh, they should be. I mean, you are basically telling your investor 7 different ways to Sunday on how they their money. But it's not just about how they could lose their money. I don't want to make it sound that depressing, because there's other good things in there too. Like, for example, what their voting rights are, what the distributions are going to be, when they can expect their money back, what the timeline is, who you are as an entrepreneur and why they should care about you. Because at the end of the day, your assets are important. What you're presenting in terms of a plan is important, but what's also important is you and who you are and why you're going to be a good steward to an investor's money.
Absolutely. And I think that having that knowledge, not only in setup, it's also good for those investors that are looking to invest, because now, having exposure perhaps to you and some of the nuggets that you're going to be offering at Building Wealth, they know what to look for when they're looking to maybe invest with somebody,
right.
Because nobody's going to protect your money better than you. right? So there's a lot of value in that. So tell us a little bit about, those are pretty lofty, and as you grow as an investor, those are perhaps avenues that you may want to go down. But what if you're just starting out? What if you just want to put together, some funds with some people that are in your family? How would you recommend, Jillian, that they go about perhaps doing something like that in a hypothetical situation? Obviously, this is not legal advice because I know you're bound by certain regulations. So
So here's the deal. Anytime you have more than one investor, so two or more investors, you are entering into the world of securities. You've stepped into it.
Right.
So you have to be mindful of that. And in saying that, what do you do if you only have like three of you? Now, I am a lawyer. I'm going to tell you, look, you always need proper legal documentation, but I'm also reasonable. It doesn't make sense for you as an entrepreneur to spend your hard-earned money or your investors' money on putting together these gorgeous legal documents that cost you tens of thousands of dollars or $10,000 even,
Right.
For the purposes of, getting your mom, your dad, and your cousin to invest, right? So I get that. So what do we do with our mom and dad and our cousin? Well, we're going to talk about that at the Build Your Wealth event, because we're going to talk about what is in this private placement that you can do yourself to make sure you at least hedge against, any potential liabilities without having to hire a lawyer and spend a ton of money.
Awesome. Valuable advice from Jillian Sidoti. Again, she and her firm really are the leading experts when it comes to not only crowdfunding, but raising capital and protecting yourself against those pesky little 3-letter organizations. So,
3-letter organizations.
you know how that goes. And it's, I have to tell you, you really should join us at Building Wealth with Notes, the workshop. It's coming up in May. Go to buildingwealthwithnotes.com. And you can get some information, but Jillian's going to be there live and in person. We do have our seats limited. We do that for a reason. We like to be able to engage not only with you, you get to know us, we get to know you, we get to answer your questions, and you get a little one-on-one time with people like Jillian, who is going to be there with us live and in person. So definitely make sure that you attend. We have sold quite a few seats, and there's 50 spots. That's it. I don't sell 51. There's no more than 50 spots. So make sure to secure yours. Jillian, give us a little, is there anything else that you kind of want to tell everybody before we sign off? Things that maybe they should look out for, or that you're going to be touching on again at Building Wealth with Notes?
Well, I just want you all to understand that this is a very tough subject, and we're going to cover as much ground as we possibly can at this event. And, the great thing about having, sub 50 people in the room is I can answer all your questions while I'm there. Yeah. So come with your questions, write them down before you show up. And then while I'm talking, start checking off what's been answered for you. And then anything that's not checked off, ask, because I'm going to be there. I'll be available.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes Building Wealth with Notes so special and so exclusive, is that you do have that one-on-one intimacy, that one-on-one interaction. We're not filling a room of 200 or 300 people where you don't get to ask your questions. So really take advantage, because you're going to have Jillian in the room and able to answer your questions. So Jillian, how, if for some silly reason they can't come to Building Wealth with Notes, how do they reach you just if they're interested in becoming a client?
Oh, that's awesome. First, I want to encourage anybody to go to crowdfundinglawyers.net. There's a ton of free information on there. So before you waste your free consultation on asking me a question that can be answered by, the multiple articles and videos on our website, go there first. crowdfundinglawyers.net. And then if you do need to talk to me, or you're ready to move forward and get your documents done, go to crowdfundinglawyers.net again, and I have a calendar right there, and you can make an appointment.
Perfect. Awesome. And for those of you that are going to attend the Building Wealth with Notes workshop, I'm going to ask Jillian to share a story that she shared with me the first time I met her about
Uh-oh.
before being a lawyer. No, this is actually funny. She owned a record label. And we're not going to talk about it today, Jillian. You're going to save that story, but I'm going to press upon you to tell the folks at Building Wealth with Notes, the workshop, that story, because it is funny.
It is actually a pretty good story. And yeah, so if you come for nothing else, come for that story.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for spending the time today, Jillian. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in May. And I know that the attendees will just create or get so much value from listening to you. I know I learn something new every single time I listen to you speak. And we have a lot of fun doing it too. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you in May. Again, sign up at buildingwealthwithnotes.com, or you can go to cashflowchick.com and go under the training tab, and that there's a link there that will connect you with Building Wealth with Notes. And until next time, my dear, thank you. And thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.